I met a gypsy.
Just everything kind of coming together at the same time. But it definitely took me a couple of years to kind of get to that point where I was ready to win races.
I bet those couple years happened quick too, because there's just so much to learn. Like you would have been very time poor in those first couple of years, just based on, like, I'm sure how much room for improvement you saw in yourself.
For sure. Yeah, I knew I had a ways to go, and like, dude, I was hungry. Like, I wanted it bad, and it was my shot, you know what I mean? Like, I was making a salary, but not enough to like support a life long term. I saw like the window of opportunity there and was like, man, I believe, I don't know for sure that I can be the best, but I believe I got a shot at it, and like I got to give it everything I have. I think from all the failures of the past and racing and all that stuff, by the time I was there and had that opportunity, like, I really wanted to make the most of it and know that no matter what happened, like, I checked every single box. So yeah, those couple of years were just a lot of hard work, a lot of riding, a lot of learning. You know, my goal basically that I had for myself every single weekend was to learn something that was going to make me better. I wasn't really focused on results at all. I was just like, I want to try to become the best. And to do that, I got to go one step at a time. I got to learn something, like, as much as I can, just be a sponge for information. And like I said, I had so many cool people around me that helped that process speed up, that I don't know if I could have done it as quick, you know, for sure, without them. But those first few years were I just like immersed myself into the process and learning and trying to improve. Like, I lived it, man, like eat, sleep, breathe, like downhill racing, trying to like get to that point. So, yeah, it was just a big commitment those first few years, and there was a lot of progress. Like, I podiumed my second year racing downhill. And then 2010 was my third year. I was on the podium pretty regularly, almost won that race. And then 2011, I won the first race in South Africa. I think I won 5 races that year out of 7 or something. And I honestly should have won every race. The 2 that I lost, I mentally couldn't hold it together. One, I made a mistake and crashed while like 5 seconds up. And then the last one, I was able to, like, I was in the position to wrap the title up a race early because I was pretty far up in points, and I was so nervous that race because there was a championship on the line. I qualified first, and I just rode like absolute garbage, and I think I got third, wrapped up the title, and then went to the last round, and I think went 1-1 in Italy for the last one. But that season was wild. Like, if I didn't beat myself, like, pretty much nobody was beating me in 2011. And 2012 was pretty similar too. Like, I think I'd reached a level from all that hard work where it was going to be pretty hard for somebody to catch up within a year or two. Like, I had kind of leaped everybody and what I was doing. So, you know, and people were able to like really kind of figure it out and get it going. But for those couple of years, things were just really clicking, man. Like, I had everything working really good.
Yeah, it's almost like you put in so much work. Like, I mean, I think we saw that with Ricky, you know. It's just like he put in so much work that everyone was kind of a couple years behind. They were going to have to adapt, and by the time people had kind of figured out or like started to figure out the program, like, he's already dipped with all the cash and all the trophies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was wild, dude. Like, it was crazy because I remember even winning the first race was in South Africa in 2011 was such a wild feeling because it was basically, that is what I was going for. I was never like in it to try to get the factory contract or the sponsors or to even be a podium guy. Like, my dream was always to be the best in the world, like to win a race. And when that finally happened, it was so wild, like surreal experience. I can remember like it was yesterday, you know, like the feeling of being over there and like looking at the crowd and like seeing the green on the sign when I crossed the finish line and being like, oh my gosh, like it finally happened, like all those years. And we're here. It was crazy, man. And I think on that note too, as a side note that might help people, something I always encourage people, especially young kids or even parents sometimes, I think people have such a tendency to get caught up in the now. of, like my kid, little Jimmy over here on the Cobra 50, he's like 8 years old, but he has to beat this kid because this is like, you feel like that's your world championship. You see it, the mini dad or the little league dad, and you're so wrapped up into the competition around you at like such a young age. Maybe it's even 14 years old or 15 years old. And I try to tell parents like, hey man, like, you might be in the 80cc class right now and you're, top 3 at the local track or whatever, but that is not the goal. Like, if you want to be the best, you're going to have to beat, I guess right now it'd be Dylan Ferrandis. Like, that would be the guy I'd be looking at as an 80-year-old or as an 80cc rider. I'd be like, that's the goal. Like, that's where we're going. Like, yeah, I want to do good now on the mini bike and, whatever. But the odds are that like 99.9% of the kids you're racing are never going to make it. Like, you're not going to be competitors with them. Like, they don't matter. Like, you should be focused on just learning and getting better and building that foundation. Like, that needs to be the goal, because who cares if you beat these kids now? Like, you're trying to beat that guy someday. So what are the steps you need to take to get fast enough and to build your mental strength and your fitness and all this good enough to where you can beat that guy? And I think that's why you see guys like Dungey and some of these guys really like have these careers that are strong and maybe not as impressive as amateurs or whatever. I think for me, I just had that perspective, early on. And so when I started racing downhill, as much as I was like stoked with 10th, I'm like, that's good. But like, I want to be the dude, and I got some more work to do, and it's going to take me some time. And so I never really cared about the results until I won. That was the result I finally cared about. Like, if I learned something every race and every weekend that I felt like was going to get me closer to that goal, then that race week was a success. I tried not to get too wrapped up into the results. And so I try to encourage kids and parents now when I talk to them, because I get parents coming to me like, how do I motivate, or how do I do this? Or I just get so worked up. Like, how do I chill out sometimes? And I'm like, well, just think of the end goal. Like, you guys are just trying to build your skills, learn every week. Like, obviously you want to do well, you want to have the results, but an 80cc title really doesn't mean crap in the long run. Like, as much as it seems like it's the whole world right now, like it doesn't matter. You're trying to get to this point. So be patient, focus on the things you need to focus on to try to get there, and just kind of like roll with everything in the meantime. So bit of a side note, but I think so many people get caught up in the results of right where they're at, and it really kind of hinders the long-term progress and also enjoyment of what you're doing.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.